Hi guys, welcome back to the second episode of Fertig, the podcast where we're done with the past and ready for the future. And once again, I am going to be joined today by James and Kimberly, who I will introduce in a moment. But before I do that, I would just like to thank you so much for the wonderful welcome that you gave to episode 1, to all your positive comments and your reminds and your interest. It was really fantastic of you all. So thank you very much. And we're back again to do it again because it's been such fun. So without any further ado, let me introduce to you the guests, who are James and Kimberly. Hey James, how are you doing today?
Hello, Bob. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. And hi Kimberly, how are you?
I'm fine. Hello, how are you doing?
Good. Doing well. I've been doing housework, so it's nice to sit down and have a chat. So thank you for joining us. And what I was hoping to do last week, we spoke a little bit around loving yourself, caring for yourself, and making yourself a positive person with a good attitude. And I've been thinking about that a lot this week, and how much focus a person needs in order to drive their life forward instead of being stagnant. And a couple of days ago, I was talking to somebody about meaning, and we were talking about what's the point of life. And we were saying that there's two different ideas about meaning in life. One is that you go out into the world to find your meaning. And it's as if you look for a little bit of meaning in your job and a little bit of meaning in your relationships and everything. But he was saying that there's a completely different way of approaching meaning and a meaningful life. And that is to think that essentially nothing really has a meaning except what you bring into your life, into your situation. And I thought that was really, really interesting. I was wondering if I could ask you guys about what you thought about that. What do you think, James? Do you think that finding meaning or building meaning, which one do you think is more appropriate?
Well, I think the thing about meaning in life is people are looking for, a certain meaning in life, and possibly they're living their life and giving their life meaning by what they do on a day-to-day basis. You just really don't know the people that you touch, that you come in contact with. And people are looking for a purpose and they're looking for a meaning in life, but you may not ever know that true meaning or that true purpose. Just being you and the person that you are. People look for meaning, they look for purpose, too many times, and they become infatuated with the idea of leading a meaningful or purposeful life. I've always had a thought. I read somewhere one time that we have as humans so many thoughts per day. It's like, I don't know the exact number, but we'll just go with some arbitrary number. You're going to have 1,000 thoughts in your day.
Right.
And of those 1,000 thoughts, there are going to be some negative thoughts and some positive thoughts. And if you create a positive thought, then you've taken away from the negative thoughts that you could have had. Thoughts, situations. For example, if you just, walk outside one morning and you say, that's a beautiful tree right there. What you have done at that point in time is you have created a positive thought. And positive possibly is your purpose in life, to be positive for others. When you enjoy yourself, when you enjoy others around you, when you enjoy life and you come in contact with people, and it's just like the other day, there was a guy, he needed to have his truck jump started. And I'm sure were it not for me, he could have found someone else to jump start his truck. But just that little thing where I was able to jump start his truck for him, it gave meaning to life. I made a difference in that person's life. So it's the little things that you do, and just like this show, that you do, you give meaning to life just by doing what you do, and that's important. Just, don't overthink things. Just do, be positive. It's interesting that, you call your show Fertig, And of course, that's a German word, and it means that when you're finished, you're Fertig. When you're ready, you're Fertig. One word has two separate meanings, but the meanings are exactly the same because when you're finished with one thing, you're ready for something else. So I find it great that you called your show Fertig. We all find ourselves, at times in our lives when we are finished with one thing, but we're ready to go on with something else. We all go through trials and tribulations through life. I've said it time and time again, but that would, for me, on a personal basis, be the meaning of life. Purpose. Live life with purpose.
Right. That is so interesting. So I think what you're saying there is that the attitude that you adopt where you come to a situation is what makes that situation meaningful. Yeah. What do you think, Kimberly?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to think about meaningful life. I mean, if you look at it, everything, in my opinion, everything happens for a reason. And if you're given a negative situation, it's your perspective of a negative situation, not the person or the situation itself. It may not be a negative situation, it's just your perspective on it. So it's just how you deal with that perspective. And if you deal with it negatively, then the situation is going to stay negative. But if you deal with it positively, I believe you can, make it a positive situation. And I'm trying to think of a good example. Oh, I don't know. You're walking outside and, it's cloudy and dreary and, it looks like one of those gloomy days. But like James says, it's a tree and you say, well, that's a beautiful tree. So you've decided to take that situation and, it may be gloomy out there, but you're looking at the tree that is beautiful. And you start cascading down into where you were thinking that, the tree has to have the rain that's making it gloomy to get to where it is that beautiful.
Yes. It's strange, isn't it? I've been talking with Roger on one of my other podcasts. We've been talking about duality, and we've been talking about how it seems when you look at something, it seems as if there's two opposite things. Like we were talking about electricity the other day and having a positive and a negative pole on the battery. And yet they're not two different things. It's one battery, and you need the positive and the negative to make the current work. What you say about the tree and the rain just reminds me of that. You can be grateful for the rain when you see the purpose of it, sort of. Yeah.
And the tree's purpose in life is to provide oxygen to the air and beauty, and the rain's purpose. Everything has a purpose. So everything, reason for everything.
Yes.
And it happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's the same in life. Anything you come upon, it's there for a reason.
There's people out there, they've got, they look at life from a religious point of view, and they say, oh, the devil made this happen, or God made this happen, or they'll question God why this happens, or they'll say, well, this happened because I did something bad. And I do believe in karma. I do believe that what comes around goes around. I think that if you're, positive in life, then positive things will happen. I'm not saying that you're going to, get rich and live a luxurious life or anything, but good things will come to you if you do good things. I firmly believe that. But as far as living life, it's not God, it's not the devil, it's just the world that we live in. And we have to go through it, and we have to get through it. And by the time it's all said and done with, hopefully by the time we're dead and gone, we made a positive impact on someone in this life, somewhere, somehow. And you may not even realize it. You may never know, how you touched someone during the course of your life.
Yeah.
But that was, in fact, your purpose or your meaning. So you could be here for someone.
My mother used to say, you are the only Bible that some people will ever read. And I always thought that was so cute, because it is about other people watching you and taking things from you, isn't it? It's you do your best and your goodwill and your good attitude just can spread out to everybody around you, not just the people that you know, but sort of the strangers as well. So Kimberly, when you say that you think that everything happens for a reason, what do you mean by a reason? Do you agree with James that it's not the devil or not God that causes things to happen?
Well, no. I mean, I do agree with him. It's not the powers that be. It's your perspective on it and how you react to it.
Yes.
Because you can be handed a marshmallow, and it just depends on how you perceive. Is it a gift or is it work? Do they want you to make a s'more? And is that work for you, or are you making the s'more because you're making a memory with someone? It's your perspective of it. It's hello.
Right.
But it's just how you perceive that marshmallow.
Yeah. That is so interesting. So imagine you're a really negative person, right? Imagine you're a really negative person, and when things come to you, you tend to see them in a miserable way. Are you suggesting that just by changing your words, you can change your attitude towards things? You can make yourself into a more positive person?
Exactly.
Wow.
It's that easy. I mean, I can give you an example. My daughter, she's depressed, anxious, and I just told her, you have to look at things in a different way. You have to find a different source to handle your anxiety. I said, you just need to stop and think about which way I want to go with this, and evaluate that perspective that you have from every situation. You have to practice and practice until it becomes a habit. If you make it a habit, you'll stop yourself and take the path you want to take. And sometimes you don't want to take the good path. I mean, obviously, no, I'm going to do something bad today. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And you don't always be positive, but you do take the negative side every once in a while. And yes, you can, but you've at least stopped and trained yourself to stop and make that decision before you did make the decision.
I think what happens a lot of times in life, too, is that people get in these negative situations. And I know that's not exactly the topic we discussed, negativity and positivity, on the last show. We're talking about meaning in life and purpose in life. But at the same time, people don't understand how they can go out and try to seek their meaning or their purpose. You have to, if you stay in the same place all the time, you're going to stay in the same place all the time. You need to get out there in the world and experience the world, experience, other people. It just depends on, what your outlook on life is. And regarding, and there's a particular individual that I'm thinking of at this point in time, they have a negative outlook on life. But at the same time, they're asking for help, but they won't allow anyone to help them, if that makes any sense to you. There are a myriad of solutions to people's issues, but whenever you come to them with the solutions to the problem, they've got 1,000 reasons why it can't happen. Instead of going with it and saying, okay, well, let's try this and let's try that, they want to find all sorts of reasons why they can't do it. And those people will never, although they do have a meaning in life and they have a purpose in life, one way or another, everyone does have a meaning, purpose in life. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But at the same time, what kind of meaning and what kind of purpose are you going to have in life?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, because you could have a really miserable life and just accept that. Okay, this is just given to me. I've just got to have this miserable life, and like you say, you'd still have a meaning. It would just be a miserable meaning. But I think that what you're saying is that you can build yourself something intentional, which is
exactly
right. That's a really amazing perspective, I think. It's empowering, isn't it?
Well, there's no doubt about it. But, there again, if you stay in the same place, you're going to stay in the same place. You have to make that choice to move on, to move in a different direction.
So with the person that you know that doesn't accept help, obviously they're staying in a negative situation. What do you think, Kimberly, what would your advice be to that person? How would you, is it fear, do you think, that's stopping them from accepting help?
Well, it depends on the person. Every person's going to have their own reason, and they're going to look at it from their own point of view.
Right.
So it could be fear, and it could be something they just don't want to face, and maybe it's something they just, have to face.
Okay.
And it's all depends on the personality and what kind of advice I'd give them, because it depends on how, close I was to the person,
Yes.
Because some people can take criticism and some people can't. And some people you can be forceful, say, no, you need to do this. And you're going to stop giving me excuses, because and you can tell them, I don't embrace excuses. I embrace solutions.
Yeah.
So what's your solution?
Right.
Just on how you would want to word it to somebody like that. But, start listening. If they start listening to themselves and start using their ears to other people and then acting on it, they're the only ones that can make a choice. It's their choice.
Yes.
And life is all about choices. They have to make the choice. Nobody can do it for them.
Do it for them, yeah. Isn't that amazing? It's so amazing. I see people struggling and suffering and want to help them, and you just can't. At the moment, my mom she's not in a good way at all. We think she's dying, but it's really tricky because she has this patch where she's really weak and she's in bed and she's sleeping, and we sort of prepare ourselves and think, okay, it's coming, and then all of a sudden she rallies and she's fine for a little while, and it's so amazing watching her suffering like this and not being able to do anything. And also having the thing, Kimberly, like she's dying. Like you can't save somebody from dying. You can help people through a lot of things, but in the end, each person has their own life and their own journey, don't they?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
I mean, and there's all kinds of voices that are external and internal voices that are leading people this way or that way or this way or that way. But it's ultimately their own choice on which one they're going to listen to and which 7 they're going to listen to. It's their own voice, the people that are around them's voice, somebody on a radio program or something else. They're going to make the decision, but they have to do it. Nobody else can do it for them.
Yeah.
Saying you can lead a horse to water and you can't make it drink.
Yes, indeed. That's so frustrating. I wish you could make horses drink. Go on, God, drink this. It's good for you. James, I just want to go back to something that you were saying about on the last show. We discussed negativity and positivity. But it seems from what we've said so far that things are hugely more meaningful when you're doing things that are driving you forward. And so I suppose, in a way, that motion of going forward could be called positivity. What do you think of that broad definition?
Well, there again, it's subjective as far as, what is moving forward, what is success, what is a purposeful life. For example, I can say that I'm doing such and such, and for me, that's a meaning in life, but for someone else, it would have absolutely no meaning. So it goes back to what Kimberly was talking about earlier, that some people, see it one way, and then some people see it another way. You have to find your own meaning and your own purpose. And a lot of times, you'll never realize what your meaning or your purpose was alongside the road of life. And that's exactly what it is. We travel this road in life. We have, if you look back at your life, you'll look at it as a sort of a book to where it has chapters, and it began, and then a chapter closed, then another chapter opened up, and that chapter closed. And as you go through this life, it's like the book, and it's chapter after chapter after chapter. And you'll find in your life that when you're young, you look more towards the future. And the older you get, you look more towards your past. You look at what other could have done different. You look at, the mistakes you've made in life, the things that you could have done different, could have done better, one way or another. And, you try to second guess yourself, but that's no way to go through life either.
Mm-hmm.
What's said is said, what's done is done. All you have is the now moving forward.
So it's, I suppose, in a way, it's a question of mental toughness and resilience and having those mental skills to objectively evaluate things and make the decisions.
Well, exactly, because you've gone through some tough times, and you're going through tough times, and you're going to go through tough times, and that's what life is all about. If you can do what you've done, then you can do what you're doing to lead you to a positive future.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense to you.
Mm-hmm. That does make sense to me.
That's a good point you make. It's mental toughness. Sometimes you just need to toughen up, and that's all there is to it. Suck it up, buttercup.
Indeed. So, how do you think you develop that mental toughness? Obviously, a baby is born, it's a baby. It doesn't really have anything, but as we go on in life, we each develop our own skills. Some people just seem to be tough from when they're very little, and other people need to work at it more conscientiously. But basically, we all have to work at it, don't we?
Well, there again, you need to develop a certain mindset and certain philosophies, and tell yourself certain things when times get hard. Tell yourself, you know what? I've gone through tougher situations than this, and I'll get through it. I've also had another thought, going back to chapters in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I've oftentimes thought about, well, when you're born to the time you're 10 years old, when you're a 10-year-old child, you're not that baby that you were anymore. And then when you're 20 years old, 10 years later, you're not that same 10-year-old child that you were. And if you look at when you're 30, you look back at your 20-year-old self and you think how stupid you were. It's all stages of development. They say that you're grown, that you're mature when you're 18. Well, that's absolutely not true either. I'm thinking that sometimes people don't mature in life until they're probably 26 or 30 years old. But you look at your 30-year-old self when you're 40, and you think about your thought processes when you were 30 years old, and now you're 40, and you're like, what was I thinking? I was just such an idiot back then. And I look at things that I used to believe in the past and how I believe now, and I think to myself, what an idiot I was. And then I'm 50 years old. I look back at my 40-year-old self. Here it is 10 years later, and I look at my life and the things that I've gone through, and here I am almost 60 years old, and I look back at my 50-year-old self, and I'm like, what was I thinking? It's your mindset changes, and you need to realize that too. In life, nothing stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at my life time and time again, and I see people, and I'm not bragging. You're not supposed to brag when you help people, but I look back at my life and I look at all the people that I have helped. I look at all the people that I have had a positive influence on, and there's people I've had a negative influence on too. Don't get me wrong, but
Sure.
You want the positive to outweigh the negative in your life, and that's purpose and that's meaning. That you, as an individual, are the one doing the right thing in any given situation.
Mm. So, Kimberly, do you have certain strategies for talking yourself through situations? Do you have ways that you've developed over your life of talking to yourself through issues and problems? Or is it just you to ad-lib in the moment?
I've trained myself quite well to just ad-lib now, but I know when I first started, it was one of those simple things of, count to 10 before you say anything.
Right.
And then it turned into, instead of, physically counting to 10 in my head, it was just, I would touch my fingers to my thumb and then all the way through my hand and then go back. And that was almost 10 seconds, or it was 5 seconds.
Right.
And it would just, it's something, there's a saying that goes with it, and I don't know what it is. I'd have to look it up, but it's like ra, ta, za, and you go through your fingers, and that would give me the time to stop before I made a decision. And it was just the stopping and evaluating the situation every situation. Just
Every.
5 seconds is not going to hurt anybody to evaluate the situation.
Right. So it sounds like what you're saying is that everybody has this wisdom within them, but they just need to give themselves that little moment of time to access. Right. Okay.
Exactly. And we're going back to the book metaphor as far as your life being a book. You've got the chapters, and when the book is finally published and it's all done and you're at the final chapter and you've got every chapter written the way you want it, and you've got all the good memories and all the bad memories and everything, you have the first draft of every chapter, and that's where you gather your wisdom, is from all the edits.
That's a
throughout your life.
wonderful way of looking at it. Wow. Sorry, carry on.
It's just one way to look at how your life it's folded out in a book, and it's all nice and neat for everybody to remember you as, and everything, your purpose in life and your meaning in life was this book. But in order to get to the end chapter and the final meaning of your whole life, to finalize the book, you had all these edits. You had all these first drafts that you had to go through, and that's where you gathered your wisdom.
Wow, I love that. That is so beautiful. So you could almost see yourself, instead of looking for meaning, you can see yourself as writing your story.
Yes.
Wow.
Bob, I wrote a song. I've written a bunch of songs, and I can't sing worth a hoot, but I can make a joyous noise, and that's all that counts. And I'm not going to sing the song, but the song is about a father who died. And there was a man, he took his family to the funeral home, and he had these thoughts about, the person that died, that passed away. And he thought to himself about what's in a life. And the lyrics to the song go something like this. It goes, what's in a life? And if you died today, would people remember you? What would they say? You were a good man, you were a good wife, mother and friend, till the end. What would they say if you passed away? You went to church, you led a good life. And basically that's the lyrics of the song. And you have to think to yourself sometimes, what would people say about you when you pass away? Would they remember you as being a kind, caring person, compassionate person? Would they remember you as being a grumpy, old fart? Would they remember you as being wise? How would people characterize you when you're no longer here? And that's the kind of life that you want to lead, is the kind of life where, when you're dead and gone, ask yourself, did you make a positive impact on someone? Did you lead a good life? Did you try to do your best? And, one day we're going to be dead and gone, and we're going to be wherever our spirits, our souls take us. But looking back, what kind of life did you live? And just to be honest with you, if I, received the news that you passed away today or tomorrow, I'd look back and I'd say, you know what, Bob Dub, she really made a positive impact on people's lives. She really made a difference. And you have, and you did. And that's the kind of thing, there's people out there, and, we're on minds.com, and there's people out there that just really don't like me, and I don't care. I really don't. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of people that really, really like me, and I'm really happy for that.
That's interesting. Thank you for those very sweet words, James. That's really kind of you. I think that I really admire the way you know who you are, and you are able to accept that, like, I am what I am. Some people like it, some people don't.
Well, you also have to look at, the fact that what is your purpose in life for yourself? Do you want to be that crowd pleaser, or do you just want to make sure that your family's happy? Is there just a certain amount of people you want to make happy? Or do you want to be the public influencer that makes millions happy? You have to decide that. That's your choice.
And I think that goes back to what you were saying right at the beginning of the show, when having meaning in your life is maybe just about being comfortable with your own being, like being able to come to terms with who you are.
Exactly. You can't please everyone. I mean, that's an impossibility. to please everyone. There's always going to be someone that's going to have something negative to say about you, or that they're going to be offended, or whatever the case might be. There is not a malicious bone in my body. There's nothing that I do or say with any malicious intent whatsoever. And at times I may say something that may hurt people's feelings, but that's not my intent. It's, for example, I can tell you about this one particular individual. I may come across as harsh to them in saying what I say to them, but it's all said with love. It's all said with feeling and with understanding. And I don't mean to be harsh. I don't mean to be, being critical is not a bad thing. It's the thought, the emotions behind the criticism. You can sit there and you can tell someone, what they should do or what they shouldn't do. And if you do it with love in your heart, then that's one thing. If you do it with malicious intent, then that's another thing.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on anything. I feel honored and privileged that you have me on this show, but I'm just another guy. And generally speaking, whenever I say something, that's just what I think. That's what I believe. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm looking for. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I get that. I believe that. I find it quite difficult here in New Zealand. I mean, I don't know, it might be like this all over the world, but I find it difficult here because it's very easy to offend people.
Right.
And for me, it's like, how much effort do I put into not offending everybody? Because almost you can't get on with your life, because whatever you do, somebody's not going to like it.
Right.
You have to sort of realize that there are some people that you're not going to be able to reach. Hey.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that means
some people, a problem is with a lot of people, and there again I revert back to this person that I'm thinking about in my mind, is they want to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And when they get done talking, they want to talk some more, but they never want to listen.
Yeah.
They never want to listen. You sit there and they'll say something, and then you have an input and you say something. They don't even acknowledge anything that you've said as being, right or wrong, or I'll try this, or yeah, that sounds like a good idea. No, they just want to live their lives as they're leading it. But they'll come out on the premise of, will you please help me? Can you please tell me, what I should do? Do you have any solutions? And then when you offer a solution, there's 1,000 reasons why that solution is not going to work, instead of just going with it and saying, hey, you know what? Hey, let's try that. That's a good idea.
Isn't it interesting how tolerant you sort of have to be, I don't know if that's the word, of other people's... It's fascinating to me how hard we work, well, me and the people that I know work at life, and yet there's this whole group of people who don't care. They just don't, they seem oblivious to even trying to become positive or adopt solutions. It's just like, oh, life's too hard. Yeah, it's weird. So what do you think the role of gratitude is in developing this sort of attitude towards life? Do you think that gratitude is a big part of mental toughness, or is it just a part?
From the perspective of the person who's giving the advice or the one taking the advice, because it's different. If you look at it from the person giving the advice, then gratitude should not be something you're looking for. That's not the thing. You're not looking for gratitude. You're looking because you don't want to be a braggart. You want to be the one that's helping. And if you're only helping to get gratitude, then you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, as far as gratitude from the person getting the advice, yeah, there should be gratitude there. And the person that's giving the advice also has to look at from a different perspective. That you may give the advice, but it's just like karma. You're not there to see everything that karma pays back to someone. So you might not see the gratitude, and you might not see that they're following your advice because they might do it 2 days later. They might do it 2 years later. They thought
Yeah.
about the conversation that you had, and that's when they do it. So you did influence them in one way or another. But I mean, and so you might not get the gratitude from the person that's getting the advice right away.
Yes.
It won't be until later on when they realize that was good advice. Let me follow that, and it worked, or something like that.
Yeah. Do you think that attitude? Yeah, that must be that attitude of being able to see that's good advice. That must be a sort of a gratitude. Hey, it must be yeah, that's good. I like that, and take that on board. Yeah. People talk a lot about gratitude and about how it's so helpful. And I do try to be grateful for things, but it's interesting for me that gratitude should make a difference. I always used to think of gratitude as like sort of being the icing on the top of the cake, not the actual cake bit. But the more I go on, the more I hear from people that gratitude really does change your heart.
Yeah, I can see how it would change. I mean, because it keeps the positive going.
All right.
I mean, there was one time that I went with my sister. We went through a drive-through, and it was surprising to her. And I had done this before. Remember when it was a pay it forward kind of thing? You'd go through a drive-through, and the person in front of you had paid for your meal.
Oh, wow.
And you didn't know it until you got up to the drive-through window. And I had done it at a restaurant, a regular restaurant. There was an old couple there, and I just told the waitress I wanted their bill because they were about to get up and leave. I wanted their bill, so I paid for their bill. And I didn't want them to know it was me. I just wanted to pay their bill, just to give them a surprise. And it happened to me when we were going through a drive-through with my sister, and she says, well, they paid for our meal? And she was in awe. She says, people do that? I said, yeah, you haven't done that. So then what does she do? A couple months later, she turned around and she paid for somebody else's bill. It didn't matter how much the money was. It was just the gesture. And I didn't want anything from it. She didn't want anything from it. It was just the gesture. So it was gratitude being paid forward.
Well, just listening to that story, I'm grinning. It's amazing. Yeah, it does. Being nice to people. And that is so meaningful. Actually, I'm thinking now that we've been talking, I wonder what I really mean by having a meaningful life. It is kind of a nebulous thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because your meaningful life is going to be different than mine.
Yeah.
And mine's different from James, and everybody has their own meaning in life. So that I don't think you really have a definition of what a meaningful life is. Because it's individually, established.
But we all want it, don't we? It's sort of some sort of inner urge to be important in some way. Yeah.
You've got to define it. In order for us to know what to do with it, you have to define it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Oh, well. Okay, so in living a meaningful life, it's your own journey. But last week we talked a little bit about support and support networks. And I would imagine that having a good support network would give you a lot of opportunities, not just for meaning for yourself, but to provide meaning for other people. Do you think, James, that having a group of friends is a part of a meaningful life for most people?
No, not necessarily. When you look at the meaning of life, it's a matter of, look at the world around you. People want to change the world. People want to matter in the world, but you can matter and that's when you're looking at meaning and purpose. You're looking at matter. You're looking at significance. And if you look at the world around you, that's where you can make a change in your life. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a large, group of friends. I mean, a lot of people will tell you that, they keep their circle small for a reason. And as long as you matter in your circle around you, that's what matters. That's what is of significance. Those are the key words that you're looking for. You're looking at what matters, what's significant when you go along with talking about purpose. And meaning. So my circle is really, really small. I don't have a lot of friends. I've got, a select few friends, I can count them on one hand. And these are people that really matter to me in life, and I matter to them in life. I'm significant to them, and they're significant to me. And it's not only friends, but it's family. I've got a lot of family members that I don't ever even talk to.
Yeah.
So having a large number of friends is not something that would matter to me in life as far as purpose or meaning. Some people, they think that the more friends you have, the more popular you are. The more what's the word I'm looking for? The better that you are, or whatever the case might be, and that's just simply not the case. There again, I'm going to repeat myself. I keep my circle small, and there's a reason for it. It's just like these parents. They've got 6 kids, 10 kids, and those children suffer because of so many kids. The parents can't concentrate on one kid or the other kid. It's like when they're talking to one kid or spending time with one kid, they're actually taken away from another kid. And I think that's actually an issue, that people, they spread themselves thin.
Right. Yes.
In family.
Yes, it's true. It is true. I was wondering the other day if 2 children is the ideal number.
I would actually probably think so. 2, 3 children. They talk about in life, well, I was the younger child or the middle child or the older child, and the older child, he was the special child until the second child came along, and the older child wasn't as significant anymore. And then the baby came along, and then it was the baby that got all of the attention. And the older child and the middle child, they ended up resenting the younger child because they got more attention, or whatever the case might be. But whenever you're talking about meaning and purpose, you're talking about significance, you're talking about what matters. And that's what we need to look for in life. We go through our lives, and you say to yourself, as you're sitting there all by yourself, look at the first person that you think of that matters most to you in your life. Look at the second person that matters most to you in your life. You're only going to have 2 or 3 or 4 people in your life that's really going to be making a difference in your life.
Right. Yes.
So those are people that you are making a difference in their life. But there again, when you go back to meaning and purpose, you have to get out there in the world and experience the world and be in contact with people. And just something as simple as holding the door open for someone, or going and buy, I've done this before too. Go in the store and buy a bouquet of flowers. They're like $3, $4, $5 for a bouquet of flowers. Then go out in the parking lot and just hand it to some random stranger who may be having a bad day, and say, hey, you know what? I think you need these. And you hand the flowers to them, and you will be surprised what a difference you made in their day.
Wow, what a beautiful thought. James, you say that you're nobody special, but you actually are somebody quite special. And I think the privilege is mine that we are able to have these amazing conversations. It's just so lovely to know a person who buys flowers for strangers. You're the only person in my life who does that. So thank you. Thank you for being that person. Kimberly, you were talking last week about your family and how you have this huge, great tribe of grandchildren. And I was, how much does that give meaning to your life? Do you find that as a woman that you feel somehow significant because of your grandchildren? How does that work for you?
I wouldn't say it makes me significant, because it's hard to explain. But when I was a teenager, I didn't even want kids. That's the funny part about it.
Wow.
I joke about the fact that I don't even like kids. But my grandkids take up a lot of my time, and just trying to remember their birthdays, I have to keep a spreadsheet, So many. But I mean, they do give me, like the term is grandmother. It's the grandmother, the
Yes.
hierarchy of the family. And I guess the significance it gives me is that I have to still be an authoritarian because the kids come to me and they're like, well, they won't do this, and how come? Why'd you curse me? I have a child that's just like I was when I was a teenager. So I guess that kind of significance. So it still gives me that
Yes.
feeling, where I wouldn't have empty nest because I have enough grandchildren to fill the empty nest when they're not here.
Right. Gosh, how lovely. That is very special, I think. I think that's something that mums these days don't really realize, is that they sort of aim at getting their kids out of the house, educated and established in society. I don't think that there's a lot of people who consider their role as grandmother or grandfather even. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be that's the hierarchy of the family, the one that's going to pass down the wisdom of all. And
Yes.
we've lived it and they want our wisdom and then they don't want our advice.
Exactly. One of the things that's so lovely about chatting with you two guys is that you're so optimistic about things. Do you think that your optimism is a part of your search for meaning? Where did you learn to be optimistic, James?
Sometimes it's not a matter of being optimistic per se. It's just knowing that, what, I've gone through the worst that life can throw at me. And to say, what, hey, there is nothing that can happen, notwithstanding, a tragedy in my life or whatever. But basically, there's nothing that can happen in my life that I haven't already dealt with. And I know that no matter what comes my way, I'll be able to deal with it. Bottom line, end of story.
Right.
I've never considered myself an optimist.
Really?
I really, I don't consider myself an optimist. I mean, because I'm the type of person that I'm more of a realist. I look at the glass, that everybody talks about. The glass is either half full or half empty. Which one do you pick? I say, well, it's always full because it's full of something besides just the water that you're talking about. You've got air in there, so it's always full, and that makes me a realist.
I look at people that come to me with these so-called problems, and I'm like, you know what? That's nothing. I mean, it just really isn't. People, they say that they're problems, and it's really not a problem at all because there's an easy solution for it. I mean, it's like if you look at things, you say to yourself, you know what? Are you going to prison? Do you have cancer? Do you have, something in your life that's really tragic that's going on right now? And the thing about it is the answer is no. It's just basic problems that everyone has dealt with for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they say to themselves, well, I've got this issue or whatever. Well, guess what? That's all it is. It's an issue. It's something you're going to have to deal with, something you're going to have to get through it. And guess what? This time next year, it'll all be forgotten about it. That's life. We live life. We get through it.
And there it goes back to perspective. It's like how you look at it and how you react to it.
There's going to be problems. There's going to be issues. I mean, that's all there is to it. Life is not easy. Some people want life to be easy, but guess what? Life is not easy. And once you go through so much in your life, you're like, no matter what comes along, hey, I can handle it. I can deal with it. There again, some people will say, well, I've got this problem and whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Suck it up.
Yep. That is actually a great attitude. I like that. I think we'll call this the Suck It Up episode, because it's really good advice, I think. It's something that I find very hard to do, suck things up. I'm always like, oh, not another thing. This too.
Sometimes you have to tell yourself, no matter what happens today, it's going to be a memory tomorrow. And you were stronger because of it, because of the things that you've gone through. And it's not only that you've gone through them, but that you have gone through them, that you are a stronger person. You can have meaning and have purpose in someone else's life because you've gone through it yourself, and you can be there as a support system for someone else if they will let you be.
If they will
There
let you
again,
be.
I know this one person. There again, I know this one person in particular. It doesn't matter what solutions you throw at them. They've got 1,000 damn reasons why it won't work. They want to talk and talk and talk, but they don't want to listen. They act like they don't hear a word that you're saying. So all you're doing is just wasting your time. And, you know, that goes back to an old story. I'm not going to tell it in German, but the basic story is the cat and the mouse story. And I'm sure you've heard it before, but basically what it is, you know, the mouse is running and running and running, and the cat is chasing the mouse. And the cat comes to Mrs. Cow and says, Miss Cow, you got to help me. So what does the cow do? The cow pooped on the mouse. Okay,
Yeah.
so the cow pooped on the mouse and hit the mouse. And then here comes the cat. And the cat's looking around and sees that pile of poop on the ground and sees the tail of the mouse sticking out of the poop. So what does the cat do? The cat takes the mouse by the tail, picks him up in the air, opens his mouth open wide, and eats the mouse. Well, that's pretty much the end of the story. But what does the story mean? The story means that everybody that craps on you is not necessarily your enemy, and everybody that pulls you out of the crap is not necessarily your friend. But when you find yourself in the crap, pull yourself out. You know, that's all there is to it.
That's an excellent story. I love that story. Don't wait for the cat to come and pull you out the crap. Get out yourself. That's excellent. Listen, guys, thank you so much. That has been a really fascinating and stimulating discussion. Do you have anything to end off with today, Kimberly?
No, not really. I think we touched on a lot of stuff, you know.
Thank you. Yeah, it was awesome. How about you, James? Any final words?
Just live life. Be happy.